We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Dr. Tughral Yamin. You're a senior analyst. Dr. Saab, pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And of course, your seasoned points of views on issues that concern the world and Pakistan as well. And online, we've been joined by Mark Meirowitz. He's a political analyst and a professor at the State University of New York Maritime College, and he's also a lawyer. So, of course, different things that you have in your pocket, different professions, and I think with that we'll be able to ascertain this new angle as far as US politics is concerned on a more broad spectrum, let's put it that way. Let's begin with you, Dr. Tughral Yamin. Donald Trump yesterday becomes the first former president in the history of the United States of America to be convicted in a civil case. He has been convicted on all the 34 charges. Had he been convicted, say, on 1 or 2 or 10 or 11, but all 34 charges have gone against him. He has been accused of manipulating business records to hide the hush money paid by a former porn star, Stormy Daniels. He is also going to be the first candidate of any American political party to run for the White House as a criminal. What happens now? Could he be fined? Could he be placed under probation or surveillance? Will he go to jail? Could a gag order be imposed? Many different, eventualities, but I wanted your point of view on that.
Omar Saab, this is the first time, as you said, and there's always a first time. So we are charting into
unknown
territory, okay? And Donald Trump may be elected as president. He may be released because he is a septuagenarian, 77 years of age. He has got no past criminal record. And once he becomes a president, if he becomes a president, he can always give himself some kind of clemency, pardon or whatever. Right. So this is something very, very new to the world, to the American politics, etc. But the American presidents have never been they have had their problems in the past also.
But not to this extent, I mean, and not to the extent that Trump has himself gone, and with proof that is present against him.
John F. Kennedy, he was a known womanizer. And conspiracy theorists say that J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, had him killed because he was a conservative man, and this young person was a very flamboyant man, and who could
but there are, there are theories abound when it comes to JFK.
Yeah, so he was bumped off. But perhaps Donald Trump resonates with the American public. Perhaps
this is a very important point, Dr. Saab. Mark, does Donald Trump resonate with the US public? Now, looking at the conviction, and of course, it is going to be announced a couple of weeks later, but what, in your point of view, as a US citizen, happens now? What are the eventualities that you feel could really happen? Is he going to be fined? Is he going to be placed under probation? Is he going to go to jail? Could there be any kind of gag order? I mean, there are a lot of, as this is something new for politics in the US and for us as well, seeing a US president, being convicted. What do you understand of all of this?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the privilege of participating in this interesting discussion. But as a matter of fact, as you say, fact-checking, Eugene V. Debs, who was the socialist candidate for the presidency in 1920, was actually ran for president while in jail and received about 1 million votes. So to that first point, that precedent of a political candidate running for office in jail and getting votes during the election has already been passed. Secondly, with respect to the pardon that was spoken about, since this case is a state of New York case under our Constitution, the president can only give a pardon for a federal offense, not for a state offense. And actually, no president has ever pardoned himself in American history. So who knows about that? But I think that that's not available for this particular scenario. To your point about the possible eventualities here, they are very, very unknown in the sense that, as you mentioned, the timing of this is June 27th, there will be a presidential debate between Biden and Trump. Then July 11th is supposed to be the sentencing. July 15th is a Republican convention at which Trump is the presumable nominee. So now that all may be pushed off because Trump's attorneys are now, I'm sure, sitting right there today in their law offices, seeking an appeal where they can stay the sentences and delay it in the appeal process. And it's even possible this would go up to the New York State Court of Appeals, or it's possible, not probable, that the U.S. Supreme Court could weigh in because there might be some federal due process issues. As far as the sentencing itself, there's a wide range of options. Now, Trump is, an older gentleman. He doesn't have a criminal record. This type of crime is a lower felony. So he may end up with probation or even, house confinement. But think of this, to my colleagues. What happens if he's elected president and then he's convicted,
that is a big question mark, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Because the Constitution of the US, please correct me if I'm wrong, as far as the qualification requirements for presidential candidates is concerned, the candidate needs to be at least 35 years old, he should be a citizen of the US by birth and has lived in the United States for at least 14 years. There are no rules that bar candidates with criminal records from running for president.
Exactly. No, but I wanted to add the point that is qualification to serve as president, not to run for the presidency. So, for example, a congressman must be 25 years of age when taking his seat or her seat. They can run at age 24. So the point is, they need those qualifications. You're absolutely right. And as I said, Eugene V. Debs actually ran for president from jail. So, that one we've already crossed. But, I would say that for the American political system, that would be absolutely tragic. And any sentencing judge in this particular scenario is going to have that in mind. And also, as I said, if the president, in fact, if he's campaigning for office and he's in jail or in home confinement, let's say he's sentenced after he becomes president and he's the president. I mean, all of these eventualities, as my distinguished colleagues have pointed out, are unknown, but they are very, very fraught for problems with our system. You mentioned our Constitution, and I don't think that our founding fathers contemplated this scenario.
I totally agree with you on that. Dr. Tughral, speaking to the media after leaving the court, Trump calls his court proceedings a fixed trial and a shameful act. He claims that justice has not been done to him and that he will fight till the end. The former president's lawyers, of course, are going to file an appeal, and Mark has also talked about that, as a result of which it could take months or years for the final decision of the case to come. Will this move in Trump's favor, or the fact that he has been convicted is going to put a political dent in his career?
One thing is clear, Omar Saab, it is a huge stigma. I mean, if somebody says that this fellow has had a sexual relationship with a porn star, it's a bad thing. He will not serve as a role model for the American public. But yet he is popular, and we have known that such kind of people can assume high offices and remain in high offices, and American presidents have had their own scandals or
remember the Bill Clinton scandal, but that went against his, didn't he?
But he was not impeached. The only person who was kicked out of office was Nixon, and that was because of his political shenanigans, because of the wiretapping of the Watergate hotel where the Democrats were having their party conferences. But that having said, Donald Trump is a very combative man. He denies everything. He's got Teflon skin, nothing sticks to it. And perhaps the American public likes a combative president like Trump. So Trump is going to fight on. He denies everything. He's always been denying. He's never said that. No.
Exactly. All those who believe in him lap up all his statements.
Absolutely.
They never ask him why, how, and maybe this. They never criticize him. They take him for his word.
No, absolutely. So he's again, let me say it like that, sort of a cult figure who can have mass following. People will adore him.
We all remember what happened on the 6th of
January. 6th of January. That was horrible.
And that is also a result of that cult following that happened. Mark, I'd like to come to you and understand, Donald Trump requests for donations for his election campaign on his social media network, Truth Social. He says he has done nothing wrong, defends himself and describes himself as a political prisoner and urges supporters to help him become president again. Is the Trump voter still in his favor, or does he have certain doubts now that Trump has been convicted?
Well, I'd like to just touch back on some of the points. First of all, no president, having been impeached, has ever been convicted, and actually Nixon was never impeached. He actually resigned. Trump was impeached twice and never convicted. So in the history of our country, no president has ever been thrown out of office. And in fact, Trump, they tried twice to throw him out. Now, to the point about the stigma and all that. Look, that came up at the beginning of the Trump campaign with the Access Hollywood tape and all these issues about Trump's behavior, inappropriate behavior, and he still got elected. Now, about the stigma of being convicted, as far as the base is concerned, this is an incredible thing, right to your point. The donations, the support for Trump, each time he has been indicted, each time he has been accused, and especially now that he's been convicted, his popularity among Republicans and his base has gone up. And honestly, I quote no less a luminary than the Wall Street Journal, which has the Wall Street Journal is not just the guy on the street. I mean, it's a significant commentator from the business community. And their point is that, and they say in their editorial today, the conviction sets a precedent of using legal cases, no matter how sketchy, to try to knock out political opponents, including former presidents. So I think that the polls show that most Americans maybe are not swayed by this. This has not changed their view. From the Democrats, they're going to use this that Trump is a convicted felon.
All right,
From
Mark,
Republican
let's come to two polls. The Bloomberg and Morning Consult poll that found that 53% of voters in key swing states refuse to vote for Republicans if convicted. A second poll by Quinnipiac University this month showed that 6% of Trump's voters would be less likely to vote for him, and it will be very productive in such a tough competition. Are such polls a real indicator of voter sentiment?
No, they're not. They're not real. Polls also have, as you know, to my colleagues, margins of error. And if you look down at the tiny language, sometimes they're 3% either way. And, 6% of Republicans are likely. That I totally, completely tell you from my heart and mind, that's not true. In conversing with people who support Trump and others, and I didn't take a scientific poll, I can assure you that the sentiment among the base is now stronger for Trump among Republicans. Now, about Democrats, the idea here was maybe to get a conviction and then use that as grist for the mill to win the election for Biden. And, it's American politics, but I think what the Wall Street Journal is saying is that using legal proceedings as a weaponization in the political system is inappropriate. So these polls, by the way, and we're right now sitting at May 31. The elections in November, we have a debate, the sentencing, all these things are happening. Those numbers are going to go up and down. But from the Republican base, I am confident from what I see, in fact, Trump coming to the Bronx, which is a completely blue state, to have a huge rally, and Biden's failing numbers and Trump winning in most of the big states right now by a couple of points, I just don't see how that can be valid. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But again, I can't prove it.
All right. Dr. Saab, the Biden campaign says in a statement today we saw in New York that no one is above the law. Michael Tyler, who's the press officer of the Biden-Kamala Harris campaign, says in a statement Donald Trump always had the misconception that he will not face the consequences of breaking the law for his personal benefit. There's only one way to keep Donald Trump out of the presidential office: election defeat. Will this work? Will this decision work in Biden's favor. Will the Biden administrations and the Democrats use it to their favor, and will they succeed in using it to their favor?
They will definitely use it. This is a huge victory for Biden's party, and they are going to play upon it. But whether they can get traction from the voters, I don't know. I really don't know, because unfortunately Biden in his in the office has not have a very stellar career. He has been dozing in office, tripping from the stairs, and
people factor is there.
Yeah, people are not very impressed by Mr. Biden, and I think he's already outlives his shelf life. 81 years of age. It doesn't matter. People have been.
Trump is 77.
Yeah, Trump is 77. Mahathir Mohamad has been in office at 90 years of age.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, but still, Biden has his forgetful moments. There are so many anecdotes, jokes about him, forgetting things, forgetting names, forgetting facts. So, do the Americans really want one old man or the second old man in office?
But it's one old man against the other, isn't it?
So, one older man, and Biden has nothing to show, and particularly after his huge, disastrous approach in Gaza, not disciplining the Israelis, to telling them to, for God's sake, stop.
But Dr. Tughral, had it been Trump, he would have acted
He would
the same way.
worse.
Yes.
He would have been worse. But what I'm saying is, he has not endeared himself to the world as well, to smaller nations like us. We are not very impressed by his foreign policy.
True.
Whatever he's doing in Ukraine, or one is a real estate tycoon, the other is a person who has served in the corridors of power, twice vice president, once president, but nothing really to show up for his political wisdom, political acumen. So I don't know what's going to become of it. So it's a bad story. We need real leaders, younger leaders.
But we don't see fresh faces as far as the US politics is concerned.
Everywhere. Mr. Putin is old. Everywhere you go, you find old men who have old policies.
So fresh blood needs to be infused in US politics as well, to have a fresh take on global politics and US politics.
Everywhere.
All right. Mark, supporters of Donald Trump who are enraged by his conviction have flooded pro-Trump websites with calls for riots, with calls for revolution, with calls for violent retribution. Some call for attacks on jurors, execution of the judge, Justin Juan Morgan, or outright civil war and armed insurrection. They have also said that his conviction is proof that the American political system is broken and only violent action can save this country. Can the situation get ugly? Can we see a repeat of what happened on the 6th of January on Capitol Hill?
Look, let me be very candid about this. And I'm a lawyer too. The way this gets resolved is in the legal system, in the appellate process, in the courts. I think it is unfounded to bring out these points that this is going. I mean, we have a constitutional crisis. We have an issue. We have this case, and our system is going to operate appropriately to deal with it from the legal point of view. And I would add that I believe that Trump has lawyers, and just as Biden stands on his high horse and says he's going to admire the rule of law, it's the rule of law that Republicans certainly also agree. By the way, about the two elderly gentlemen, they're going to have a debate on June 27th. I think that's the litmus test for this whole seniority elderly issue. Can Biden hold up well in that debate or not? That is the key to the future of his campaign. If he does well in the debate, well, then we have a horse race, as we say. Now, we have a lot of issues in American foreign policy, but right now, and even I'm sure throughout the South Asia and elsewhere, all politics is local. Our Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, has said this. So when you talk about Biden's foreign policy is dictated by his desire to be reelected. And that's why he's making many of the decisions he's making in terms of foreign policy. For whether you like them or you don't, they are geared with that in mind. And that's not a very good way to make foreign policy, but that's the reality. Right now, we have a very divided electorate. And if you look at the numbers, you were mentioning the polls, look at the numbers. our country is divided. This election is going to be very close. So that's what's motivating all of this that's going on. The problem is that these ideas that are brought up about how is this going to get resolved, we really don't know. But we need to have the faith in the judicial system of the United States that we can handle these types of problems. I just wanted to add one thing, with your permission, which was mentioned about JFK before. I was a child when JFK was assassinated. He was a person who was dearly loved by Americans. And there are many, many theories about him, but I'm really not comfortable with some of the conspiracy theories about his assassination. It's unresolved. There was a Warren Commission. I just wanted to say that that one really doesn't fit as a square peg in a square hole in this discussion. We have a unique situation here with Trump and Biden. We've never had it. We've never had a president actually convicted who's running, I mean, as other than the candidate running that we talked about, but the potentiality that he could be in jail when serving as president, that we've never had. So we need to look to our courts. And I do think the Supreme Court somehow will end up weighing in, because they did weigh in on the issue of where Trump was kicked off the Colorado ballot, and the Supreme Court came in and said, you can't do that under the Constitution. So there may be some constitutional argument here that gets us into the Supreme Court. Supreme Court does not like to get involved in elections, but we've just talked about today just for a couple of minutes, and we see the tremendous conflict and confusion in the American system about this, which is going to interfere with the election. Our courts need to resolve these issues very quickly and very expeditiously so that we can proceed with an orderly election. And same issue we talked about before about Biden's age, that's a big problem and a question mark.
Mark, thank you very much to have joined us, and thank you very much for your point of view as far as this continuity of US politics, US political campaign, of course, in the context of the conviction of Donald Trump is concerned. I would like just a one phrase answer. Do you agree with what Mark Meirowitz said as far as all the comments that have been emanating from the pro-Trump followers? We have seen there is a precedent. It's not as if it hasn't happened. Is there a possibility that things could go awry, things would go south? 1 point answer.
Yes, there is a probability.
All right, there is a probability. I hope that probability does not happen. With that, of course, we end this segment, and thank you very much also, Dr. Tughral, Yamin, to have joined us.